There's a tweet that went out and word going out by Ken Penders saying that he would love to come back and contribute or at least work on 300 issue 300 of the Design to Hitchhike comic book, and basically, as he put it, bring it back to its former glory. Um, at least that's what I think he says. Yeah, this is what he says. He says, and this is by someone called Clark Kent slash Superman on YouTube, commented and mentioned then. He said that, and this is his quotation. He says, after all we've been through, I'd consider working with Archie on the 300th issue special to restore the series to its former. Now, one can only imagine exactly what that means, what he's talking about. I'm sure if he was to do it, that, he'd probably want to have a say in it. Like I would say if Ken Penders was to come back and do it, I'd say he'd want certain stipulations. And those stipulations I believe he would want would basically be the kind that would allow him to retcon in some way certain story elements. Like, even though he probably knows and probably does know for a fact that things have been rebooted and retconned, he'd want to probably still make certain things part of the continuity. Like maybe even with this new timeline and all that, he'd want to make Mobius years later a true continuity, a true part of the continuity to it. Maybe he'd want to bring Julie Sue back and Hershey back in some form, shape, or capacity. And maybe he'd want Knuckles to also remember the old world as well. But I just honestly don't think it's going to happen, because right now we already have the solicits for, I think, was it 294 already out, I believe 94. So I don't really think they're going to go in that direction and probably ask Ken to come back, because right about now they're probably working and drafting up the issues leading up to 300 and probably even 300 itself. So, and again, if he wants to contact them, go ahead. I'm pretty sure they would be willing to talk, but again, I believe what Ken would love to do is just have certain things kind of retconned in his favor, to where, like I said, something like maybe Mobius years later could be part of the true a true part of the continuity of the new timeline. Maybe, get Knuckles to remember, bring Julie Sue in, bring Hershey in, do it in a way that I guess in Ken's opinion would bring the comic back to its former glory, because you would have elements of the old continuity hybrid and mixed in with the new continuity. So, honestly, would I be in favor of Ken coming back? Is an agreement could be made, some kind of compromise could be made without any arguments or legal issues or anything like that? Absolutely. But honestly, I think it's a little. Even though it's been a couple of years, I think it's still too soon. I think it's still kind of relatively fresh in the minds of people that were affected, the writers, the staffs, the people in the Archie Comics offices, the people at Sega and Sega of America, the representatives. I think it's still relatively fresh, the lawsuit and everything they went through, the copyrights. So, as much as Ken can come, as much as, I would like to see it happen, if a compromise can be made, just for this one-time issue, I really don't think it's going to happen. I think they're going to go on with, I think they're going to move on with 300 without Ken's involvement, because, like I said, right now they're probably working on the draft for 300 and the issues leading up to it. So that's really all I can say about it. And again, will it happen? I highly doubt it, because, like I said, the wounds, if you will, of that lawsuit, that copyright situation, are still relatively fresh in the minds of people at Archie and those that represented Sega. So I don't think Ken's going to be welcomed back at any time. So as far as him working and proposing to, so as far as him, reaching out and saying, "Hey, I would like to work on the book." With him saying something like what he did, like by basically saying that he would like to bring the comic back to its former glory, that may not sit well with a lot of the people at Archie Comics or Sega as well, because it sounds like he only wants to do it for himself and nobody else. So that's all I'm gonna really say on it. You guys let me know what you think down below. Comment if you like. But to answer Clark Kent / Superman here on YouTube and anybody else like Lewis the Hitchhog, anybody else, I don't really think it's going to happen anytime soon. I think, like I said, things are still relatively fresh. The lawsuit, the copyrights, the aftermath, and all that is still relatively fresh. The wounds are still opened, if you will, and slowly still healing. So I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I mean, I'll give you an example. I'm a wrestling fan, and there are some, wrestlers, superstars we didn't think would be back in WWE after a falling out, and yet here they are. So, and yet there are times that they do come back after, a few years away, maybe a decade away, because they want to they want to let time heal the wounds. They want to make sure things that people have gotten past the falling out, the lawsuits or whatever, and they are ready to move on with their lives. So do I see Ken coming back sometime in the future if the Sonic comic continues beyond 300? Yeah, I do see it happening, and it might happen within the next year or 2 or 3 years, the next couple of years, I should say, but I don't see it happening right now, and I don't see it happening for 300 because I think they're working on it. Because I think they're working on 300 as we speak. They're probably writing up the script right now for it, maybe the draft for it. But I don't see him coming on board at the last minute and helping because, like I say, everything is still relatively fresh in people's minds from the lawsuits and the copyrights. So, honestly, I don't think, with all due respect, honestly, I don't see Ken Penders working on 300 or helping out. And that's really all